Hello everybody, Tall Paul here with Left-Handed Knife Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing the Civivi Vexer, model number C915C. Let's get right into it. Let's kick it off with our facts and figures. This is going to be a 4-inch blade in D2 steel running on bearings. Scales are going to be made out of G10 and are attached to stainless steel liners, and the handle measures right in at 5 inches. At the time of this review, this knife sells for $59.50 on Blade HQ. I'm going to put a couple of items on the table for size comparison, as the actual dimensions of the knife will appear on your screen. First up, we have our unsharpened Dixon Ticonderoga pencil. Follow that up with the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And round out our size comparison with another Civivi option, the Civivi Praxis. Next up, we'll talk about Larry and my experience while using the knife. The Vexer is nice to use. The G10 has a really good texture to it, and the rounded edges make it feel really nice in the hand. The size of the handle gave enough room for our hands to fit, and we were able to comfortably hold the knife in a few different ways. You have this nice little choke-up position with the finger choil, your normal chef's knife position, and then a full handle grip with either the thumb on top or the thumb on the side. This knife also deploys incredibly well with really good consistent lockup. You can also deploy this knife with either the flipper tab, or you can actually deploy it with the thumb hole. Overall, this knife was pleasant to carry for review. Let's look at some of the things that the Vexer succeeded at. This is Civivi, so a lot of the finishing details were very good. A lot of the edges are smoothed over. There's nothing sharp. Nothing here feels unfinished. This is also a really good knife for the money. For $60, you're getting a 4-inch blade in D2 steel with a snappy, consistent action. The D2 held up really good for us and held a really good edge throughout the review. The action is great and it deploys incredibly reliably. The handle on this knife is also very nice. The overall ergos of this blade are really good, but this little curve in the handle was something that stood out for both Larry and I during the review process. Next up, let's talk about what this knife struggles with. This knife struggles with size a little bit. The spear point blade does a really good job at hiding the length of this knife, but at 4 inches, this knife is big. For the more delicate tasks, and even when choking up, there's still a lot of blade here. This was definitely larger than me or Larry really preferred to carry for review. Also at 4 inches, the scare factor on this blade was more prevalent than on a smaller blade for sure. Let's move on to points of note. Points of note are neutral things that we want to mention but fall between successes and struggles. First thing, there's no jimping on the spine. That bothered me a little bit, but not enough to be super negative. I know they've done jimping on knives similar to this one. The Shredder comes to mind first of all. I don't understand why it's not here. Maybe it was for aesthetics, but it's definitely something that I do miss. The pocket clip is a nice deep carry pocket clip. The blade also gets kind of thick along the spine near the handle. You have enough blade to work with where that doesn't become a problem often. It is much thinner up towards the front. This knife also overcame its initial perceptions for Larry. He called this knife the sci-fi knife for a while, but this knife really grew on him over the course of the review. Next up, let's talk about everything that's left. The part of the review where we talk about everything left-handed. So, this being a flipper knife, it is going to give you the exact same experience opening the knife for a left or right-handed individual. You can also reverse flick this knife incredibly easy as a left-handed individual, just as you can as a right-handed individual. Pocket clip is reversible, can go on the left or the right side in the exact same position, which is great. And then the liner lock is obviously going to be built for a right-handed individual, but as far as liner locks go, this one has a nice little bit of jimping on top. Really easy to manipulate it with your left hand one-handed and disengage that locking mechanism. The cutout is a little bit more prominent on the right side than the left side, but it is probably the closest I've ever seen to identical on a knife, and it just makes reverse flicking for a left-handed individual slightly easier. All right, let's go over our recommendations and our final conclusions. Me and Larry recommend this knife for anybody looking for a really good budget knife at about 4 inches. The action and lockup are very consistent with other Civivis, and you can't really go wrong in this price range with this knife. The curve of the handle and the general fidget factor, both with the flipper tab or with the opening hole, really elevate this to another level compared to some other Civivis like the Praxis that only has the normal flipper tab. This knife also has incredibly similar experience for a left and a right-handed individual. The only standout item is going to be that liner lock, but it should not deter a left-handed person from purchasing this knife. The only people we don't recommend this knife for are for people not looking for a large blade. This is a 4-inch blade. It is going to be illegal to carry in some places, and in the places it's not illegal, it is going to turn heads if you take this out of your pocket and open it to open up a box or a letter. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe for more great knife content, and we'll see you next time.